Hello everyone and welcome to this video on this course of getting started in Angular. In this part of the video, I will be going over the points which we will be covering as we progress in this course. We have already gone over some of the basic concepts as far as getting Angular installed on your machine, on your macOS, and also how does the Angular framework look like. But I would like to go over some of the major points that we will be covering throughout the course. So we already gone over the basics. As we move forward, the first thing that we will be covering is components and data binding. So I already showed you guys the first component, which was the app.component.html.scss.ts. So basically we had this app component which was given to us from the start, but we also look at how we can create components, how we can play around with components, and also what is the importance of data binding as far as working around with component goes. So basically, if I have multiple components or I have a component within a component, how do I communicate between those components using input and output data binding techniques, and what are property binding, what is event binding. All of the stuff obviously will be covered in great detail as we progress throughout the course. We will also be looking over directives. What are directives? What role do they play? How directives can be used as reusable components in other places? What are host listeners? What are host binders and directives? So we will be looking at this particular topic in detail as well. We will also be looking at services and dependency injection. What are services? How we can use services as well to communicate between components, their significance in an Angular project, and what is dependency injection, how a service can be reused in other service as well. So yeah, this particular topic I believe is extremely important. We'll be covering this as well. What is routing? How we can shift between pages, shift between go from one place to another in Angular. What is significance of routes? Even though I said Angular is a single page application, but if you have multiple pages, how can we shift between multiple URLs or multiple components using routing? What are observables? How can we create an observable? How we can subscribe to it? How we can listen to changes in observable? How we can unsubscribe to it? This is also something that we'll be covering in great detail. Forms, also another important topic. How we can get data from a user? How we can set up form validation? What is the significance of form validation? And yeah, the other topic are pipes. What are pipes? How we can use pipes to transform data? How we can use pipes to use components or use techniques such as safe HTML. So yeah, this is something we'll cover in great detail as well. HTTP, how we can communicate through our Angular application with the backend, whether the backend is on Django or Node.js, doesn't matter, but how we can set up HTTP inside of our services module to post data, to get data, to put data, and to retrieve data as well. Get authentication, how to set up router guards. If a user is not authenticated, they should not be able to go between pages. Also, I believe an extremely important topic which we'll be covering in great detail. Unit testing, how to set up unit tests inside of an Angular project, how we can make sure that components are working the way they should be, and if they are changed, so we make sure that those changes are accounted for, and unit tests are always passing at all times. And NGRX is something that we'll be looking at briefly, even though it's not necessary, but I do believe that having an idea of how NGRX work just gives more information and gives a better understanding of the Angular framework. And finally, how do we deploy our Angular application to the cloud? So these are all the topics that we'll be covering in great detail. I am sure you guys will find this course extremely beneficial, and let's get started with our very first, or I should say second point, which is components and data binding. See you guys in the next lecture.